them. They couldn't rent a car. They were locked out of the American dream. And I said, well, why don't we just make a virtual bank? And I can't count. And we created budget. Why don't we give them ways to help with the healthcare issues? We're doing that. But why don't we create a whole financial company? And why don't we keep using technology and let technology evolve and has evolved? I got a report that it was for 60, I made the company for 60 or 70 banking systems, 70, 80, 90 million people. I made it. Then J.P. Morgan tells me that a free bank account for many Americans costs twice as much as my universe service. So now hundreds of thousands of people. But it was just, I can't even count. I'm a banker, should have thought of that. Would you think? We lose money on it. They lose money on a lot of those people. So it costs half the price for Universe that does for, I don't want to say they sponsor our own chapter. The first chapter of the book was redefining rich. And what I didn't want was to get the book and, and throw it out the window. My brother's a prosperity preacher, and he's like, Russ, it was a lot of, because even if I'd been to a sermon in some Buddhist monk, Geshe Michael Roach, I remember specifically saying at the back door. So I knew that I didn't want my book to get thrown out the window. So I didn't want to write not a lie. It's just not. Not the core of the secret is. But you couldn't say God or the self or delving into the self is the core of the secret and operating part of the craft. So Jesus taught 2 sermons that we thought about. And so this way we explain what the secret is and we explain the truth, but Jesus didn't lie, right? One sermon, if you do this, you'll get that. To the masses, they were anxiety prone. They had to pay the Romans their taxes on time. They didn't want to hear too much rap about spirituality. They wanted to hear well, if you're a good servant and a good giver and you really, look after your brother and you become a beacon of light, then you will attract these things. So he taught them the trade. But he told his disciples, just give. And of course, they were better getters, they were better givers. But you couldn't just tell people to give and you don't have to reap what you sow and tell them all that because they didn't want to hear it. You could tell it to his disciples. But they wanted to be closer to God or good. And they'd be provided for. And the Romans' taxes would become easy. So that kind of helped me with the first chapter. Because the first chapter, redefining rich. The state of rich, consciousness or rich state is a state of needing nothing. That's what rich is, a state of needing. I used to read a lot of scripture and made a lot of movies. I have an internet company, so I read a lot of junk off my internet company, globalgrind.com. It's kind of a Huffington Post for post-hip-hop and hip-hop generation. All progressive stuff, with stuff far to the left to keep holding them. Far to the left with Dennis Kucinich. My silly stuff, but it's big, it's really big. It's like people who grew up on hip-hop or are hip-hop. It's integrated in the ways I think the world should be. Because the world is still, there are some people who really live post-racial or believe in it or are inspired by it. And if you look at the internet, it's like the black website will say, in white folks news, and then Perez Hilton's nutty, or where the gossipy people are. It's like they don't acknowledge that black people exist. So, like, they'll find some Australian girl with big boobs rather than Amber Rose, who is already famous for having big boobs. I mean, so they really will overlook. And so there's a separation, and there's an integrated opportunity, and it's really the next world needs to see this, So we built this company, Global Grind.
For all the students in the audience, you're hearing more words today in this conversation than you'll ever hear in our classroom.
But you hear them in the street.
That's right.
I'm surrounded by very talented people. And I have ideas, and I go to work on those ideas, and then eventually the business people will show up. So I would say that I have many businesses, as you know.
Right.
All of them are managed by people who are smarter and more talented than I am. But I have courage to start new ideas. And I think that's where I am. And also sometimes, at least for the first 5 or 6 years, I know exactly how I want them to go. Yogananda says that the Kriya practice for God realization or also realization of any idea. The imagination, he says, is God. Hard work, dedication, faith, and resilience. Faith, critical, because the enlightened ones just think of something different and the world changes. But the rest of us work hard and, and work and dedicated and resilient. And you can never fail. It's impossible to fail until you quit.
Oh, okay.
Right? So so it's impossible to fail until you quit. And so it takes resilience and faith. And things alter themselves sometimes, but if you have an idea, that's why, as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to take maybe the courage to go a little bit longer than the business plan that was written. It may take a little longer. All my businesses, my partners quit before they became successful. It's kind of good news sometimes. So hard because it changes every day. People always ask me, what's my favorite this, my favorite that? I just don't know the thing I'm facing right now. The biggest problem right now is I haven't slept in 3 days. I've been traveling on a book tour. And that'll go away too. Come and they go. My favorite record is the one on the radio half the time. Not half the time, a lot of times. A lot of times I'm listening and they put that record on, oh man, that's my shit. I'm excited. And an hour later, another record will come on, and that'll be my shit.
No, I can relate to that.
Sometimes if it's a business thing and it's public and it's a discussion, like the Washington Post took my fees from my Unirush company and tripled them by mistake because they couldn't read the simplest website on the planet. And after they did that, then the same information that they had turned out in Business Week, and that turned out in like 100 other websites. It's like they're all, these are all financial people. It's just like they couldn't understand in the first place, but it was such a simple thing. Everybody who's a customer understands it. So I had to write a nasty letter, threaten to sue them publicly to create some kind of more dialogue about the discussion. But if they see me on the beach and I got a pot belly, I don't say shit. I don't do nothing. So me too, right? Having a family is the first, first commitment, and you want to be there when the kids are growing up, and you just put them first. I'm separate from my family. I see my kids all the time. I make sure I call them every day. I try to stay in touch as much as I can, but it's very tough. It's tough for me especially. But when I get there, the most important thing for kids though, especially my kids, because I really have a unique situation. My wife is remarried to a very wonderful male figure. Doesn't have to be. He's a male. He doesn't have to be. But he's a really good guy. He's very sweet. And when I go over to the house, and I hang out with the family, and I hang with them, the two of them, my children, they know that Daddy really loves them. They come and stay with Daddy. They're excited. Everybody else see Daddy, and I call them. I'm busy, Daddy. But they know I love them, which is kind of a critical thing. That the kids know you love them, and you give them certain things. I taught them to meditate. Their mother makes them meditate. I taught her, she's a better disciplinarian. I tell them, I take them to the farms and teach them about vegetarianism, and the mother actually makes them eat healthy food. I give them pizza. I mean, I don't really. So I really, I give them principles, and the mother executes on the promise. So it's like I said about my businesses, right? So in other words, when they're with Daddy, they get a little too much of everything. But, since and their mother's a great disciplinarian, I know I was in that thumb. And I think they're doing fine, this particular family system. But, if you're a mother, single mother, I mean, I don't have a great answer. I don't know. It's not in the book. It's not even in my book. I just don't have the expertise.
Right.
I have 114 credits. I need 4 credits. But I have 4 doctorates.
We can make it short.
Another doctorate. Thanks.
Would you like to be an alum of UB? We can make it work for you. Okay, let's start with some questions over here.
It would make me happy, and things that I know instinctively are written so many times in the scripture, and I've studied, that's one thing I've studied a little bit about is the yoga scripture. And every time I read something that rings a bell, that rings true, it sticks in my brain. I have a little more faith that that's true, that what they told me is true, what your mother, and the prophet, and the preacher, and the scripture told you is true. So I know that money, for instance, doesn't make you happy. And I know that success is happiness. But I will say that happy makes you money. So, but the amount of success has changed, I guess, dramatically. But now at least I'll answer the question differently, you know. But I instinctively I know that happiness is, you know. I mean, no matter how big your mansion, you can only sit your ass in one seat at a time. and happiness is the ability to sit in that one seat and be comfortable and need nothing. Being the president. Julie Greenwald worked for nothing. Free. The legal. Right, to work as an intern. Now,
yes, it is.
then it went, right, work for free. She's the president now of Atlantic. Mike Kaiser, the president of one of those companies, he was a slave. He didn't come looking for a job, he came helping. He loved the business, was so inspired. Brett Ratner would come and carry any camera equipment for anybody. Now he's the top director, or maybe top grossing director in Hollywood for all I know. He's up there. So you have to go where you're really, really passionate, and you tell the employer that you're really, really passionate about what it is that you want to help him with. My whole life, I love fashion, and let me just go work for free for my all. Right. Because all my, I really should. I hate using that word so much, but if we could be empowered to give. This book is about giving. And I told you there's one part about, you know, the trading part, but that's not the core of the message. It's the giving part that is the real message. So the second sermon, what I'm really betting on, I'm trying to say it in such a way that you'll get the second sermon, the one for the disciples. Good givers are great getters. I always, you know, and you have control over your actions, but not results. So go and really do the work. And you know, you may not reap exactly what you sow, but you'll get paid. Especially in this society where almost nobody has the kind of work ethic that I'm talking about. Should I just roll over and die? I find that I run 5 charities also. Really what I do. Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. We have imams and rabbis around the world having dialogue. It's exciting. It's growing very quickly. Congregations are part of what I call twinning programs. We have Hip Hop Summit, does social and political stuff, and also financial literacy. We have Diamond Empowerment Fund to educate Africans and extract some money from the diamond industry, and from our companies as well to try to help higher education for Africans, a Life Project for Africa, which I'm on the board of, the chairman of. The Art Education for Inner City School Kids, something I deeply believe in, the Rush Foundation. So I got a lot of that stuff. And I really don't have that much, I'm not like one of those rich people. Like, you know, like Bill Gates and rich people. And I mean, I don't think that the karmic result from all of the giving Bill Gates gives is, for instance, is better than the guy who's actually administering the drugs that Bill Gates paid for. The person who's in the hood, or I want to be a person who gives more because of ego. I want to give for all the things I care about. I'd like to educate people on the suffering of animals. You know, the 15,000 Africans who die every day for lack of clean water, pretty much. I'd like to talk about them more and raise a microphone, you know.
Any discipline, physical discipline that has to do with spirituality, very, very important. A lot of people in the hood, especially, and not only hood, all of our people, underserved communities, they seem like they're eating the wrong food, they're treating their body poorly, not exercising, it's a real problem.
And the beauty in what you're doing, when you think of martial arts, which is mind, body, and spirit, I think it's a great merge to empower our kids. Would you?
I would say that the idea of martial arts, or the idea of yoga, or the idea of any of those things that have to do with the spirit and movement. You know, I think it's not in the Christian scripture enough about taking care of the first chakra. The first chakra is critical. You know, you got to take care of the self so you can take care of others.
All right. Thank you.